सर्वोपनिषदो गावः दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्स सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् अहं सर्वस्य प्रभवः मत्तः सर्वं प्रवर्तते इति मत्वा भजन्ते मां बुधा भाव समन्विताः मच्चित्ता मद्गतप्राणाः बोधयन्तः परस्परं कथयन्तश्च मां नित्यं तुष्यन्ति च रमन्ति च तेषां सततयुक्तानां भजतां प्रीतिपूर्वकं दधामि बुद्धियोगं तं येन मामुपयान्ति ते तेषाम् एवानुकम्पात्त अहम् अज्ञानजं तमः नाशयाम् आत्मभावस्तः ज्ञानदीपेन भास्वता ज्ञानदीपेन भास्वता. We have all assembled here on this Punya Bhumi, celebrated as Mayapuri, one of the Sapta Moksha Sthal in Bharatadesha. Haridwar originally is celebrated as Mayapuri. Maya means Adbhuta Ascharya. This is a place which was consecrated by a drop of Amrita. A drop of Amrita fell on this very place after the Kshirabdhi Mathana. Therefore, on this very sacred land, we have all assembled to relish Gita Amrita. And specifically, the essence of the Gita as captured by 4 simple yet profound shlokas situated in the very heart of the Gita, in the chapter called Vibhuti Yoga. And various acharyas celebrate these 4 shlokas of the Gita as Chatushloki, because these 4 shlokas contain in them the quintessential wisdom of the Gita. And that is why they are celebrated as Chatushloki Gita. So as we go through this yatra, which we have titled as Vishalasya Vibhutayaha Visishta Sandarshana Yatra, it is only appropriate that we celebrate Badri Vishal and his Vibhutis through Vibhuti Yoga and specifically through Chatushloki Gita. It seems there was a teacher who asked students in her class to come up with the 7 wonders of the world. She gave this exercise. Then all the students got together, started brainstorming as to what should be the 7 wonders of the world. And all of them started voting for their own choices. And they started writing down and giving their choices to the teacher. The teacher was going around collecting the inputs, the feedback, the votes of the children in the class. And as she was collecting, it was quite evident that the votes were for the great pyramids of Giza, for Burj Dubai, for Taj Mahal. All the known choices were coming in. And then as the students were submitting their votes to the teacher, in one corner of the class, there was this little girl who was very busy writing down, and she was so very animated, and she was thinking and writing, not yet ready to submit her vote. The teacher approached her and said, "What's bothering you?" She said, I do not know. There are so many things that I need to put down. How can I give you just one word? Teacher was quite happy that this girl said so. She said, what do you have? Let me see. So then she hands over her paper to the teacher. And therein the girl has written, the 7 wonders of the world are to see, to touch, to hear, to laugh, to love, to think, to desire. Many times we fail to recognize the wonder of living. We are all constantly looking out for wonders, miracles, and in that process, we fail to ignore the miracle of life and living. Every moment as it unfolds brings us precious moments, and when we connect with those moments, we then understand the meaning and profundity of life. Simple things we take for granted demonstrate the wonder of creation and the wonder that is the creator. Now I cross the road in the junction and then I see the green light and then I cross. That crossing is rooted in my assumption that there is grace of Bhagavan. Everything in this wonderful world is because of the working of His grace 24/7, all the time. What we take for granted is as His grace at work. This pumping heart, it's such a miraculous design, so very simple, made of tissues, starts ticking right before we see the light of the day, right before we take birth. Goes on working, miraculously working. The wonder of the design. And it goes on beating, lub, dub, lub, dub, lub, dub. But then, if we are careful to listen, it is not just lub, dub, lub, dub. It is love Krishna, love Krishna, love Krishna, love Krishna. His grace is at work because after every love, there has to be dub for life to continue. There cannot be love, love. It has to be love, dub. Without His grace, nothing works. His grace is at work all the time, working overtime. And when we recognize that, we are in wonder. We are in awe. When we recognize the beauty of this world and the wonder of this world, we are in awe of Bhagavan. And when we are in awe, we are also in gratitude. And bhakti is nothing but an admixture of love for Him with a sense of awe, wonder, gratitude, all rooted in Shraddha. Now, gratitude is so very essential ingredient of bhakti. A master and his disciple, they decided to spend some time in the forest doing tapasya. So they walk out, they go into the forest to spend the few days there. And right the first day, they build a hut in the forest to stay. And then the master and his disciple, after a day's hard work of tapasya, they take rest in the shelter of that hut. And then as they go to sleep, the disciple's mind, like all our minds, is complaining. What kind of a master is he? He brings me to a place where there are no luxuries, no comforts at all. In this forest, I have to spend time sleeping on on this without my bed, without my cushions, and no air conditioning, no fans. And as he is complaining, he is tossing and turning around on the ground. And he looks at his master, who is sound asleep. He just hits the bed and he's sound asleep, blissfully sleeping. Whereas this complaining mind of this disciple is unable to come to rest. He's not finding rest and sleep, tossing and turning around. And then after some time, heavy rains, there is a downpour of rains, and heavy winds and downpour of rains, and the roof is washed away in the heavy rains. The roof opens up and the rain is pouring down and they're getting drenched. The servant runs out, and he goes out and he is complaining, and he sees the master dancing in the rains. He looks at the skies and says, "Hey Krishna, your ways are your ways. We haven't had the time to have bath today in the forest, and today you are with this shower cleaning us all over. Your ways are your ways. Thank you." The disciple looks at the master and says, "How are you able to do this? Whatever be the situation, you are finding a way to thank Krishna." He says, "This is the only thing that we can do. And a worship that is most acceptable to Krishna is a worship which is filled with love, gratitude, and wonder." We may have this question as to how such bhakti can be cultivated. All of us have this question. How can we cultivate bhakti which is undivided, bhakti which is unflinching? How is it possible that there are those great jnanis who seem to have that Krishna Trishna, that thirst for Krishna, that bhakti for Krishna, which seems to be not very naturally coming to us? How do we cultivate bhakti? How can bhakti germinate, sprout, and grow? This is where Krishna helps us with Vibhuti Yoga. Yetam Vibhutim Yogam cha mamayo vetti tatpataha so vikampena yogena yujyate natra samshayaha. A very important shloka which we need to regularly contemplate. How do we cultivate bhakti? Bhakti which is unflinching and undivided. Krishna says, Etam vibhutim yogam cha. Vibhuti and yoga. Mamayo vetti tattataha. Mama vibhuti, mama yoga. Etam vibhutim yogam cha. Mamayo vetti tatpataha. Saha avikampena yogena. Avikampena yogena. Unshakable bhakti yoga. How do I cultivate bhakti which is unshakable? The only way, and by cultivating that unshakable bhakti, I attain Him. So therefore, cultivating that unshakable bhakti is a prerequisite to attainment of Krishna. And how do I cultivate that unattainable bhakti? Krishna gives us the answer. Etam vibhutim yogam cha mama yovetti tatpataha. Hey Arjuna, one needs to necessarily know my vibhuti and my yoga. These two terms need to be carefully understood. What is vibhuti? What is yoga? Krishna's vibhuti, Krishna's yoga. Vibhuti. Vibhutir bhutibir aishwaryam. Vibhuti is Vibhu's Aishwarya is Vibhuti. These two terms are very important. Bhagavan is Vibhu. Everything else is his Vibhuti. Vibhu is one who is the sovereign master, the controller, the ordainer. the ruler, the one with the limitless reservoir of happiness, limitless reservoir of beauty, the source of everything. He is Vibhu. Vibhuti, everything that is ordained, everything that is controlled, everything that is subject to sthiti, utpatti, pravritti, under the control, utpatti, creation, sthiti, maintenance, sustenance, pravritti, functioning, operation. Everything whose sthiti, pravritti, utpatti, all are controlled, governed by the Vibhu is Vibhuti. Vibhuti is a manifestation of a fragment of Vibhu's powers. So Krishna says, Etam Vibhuti, Mama Vibhuti. First, one should know his Vibhutis. Second, Mama Yoga, he says. This yoga is different to the generally understood yoga shabda. Mama Yoga, Yujyate iti yoga. Here, Krishna is talking about yoga, which is what is that ever united with him? His Ubhaya Lingatva, which is two terms that we need to know. Akhilaheya Pratyanika Kalyanaikatana. Two yogas, which is he is ever united with Kalyana Gunas, auspicious qualities. Bhagavan is endowed with innumerable auspicious qualities. How do we experience Krishna? How do we know him? How do we experience him? We experience him through his gunas, through his qualities. When we chant the Vishnu Sahasranama, every nama represents a guna of Bhagavan. And it is through that guna that we experience him. We know him, we realize him. So therefore, yoga here is on one hand, all the auspicious gunas, auspicious qualities with which he is endowed. Also, yoga also stands for his blemishlessness. He is devoid of anything which is negative. He is endowed with everything positive. He is devoid of anything which is negative. That is the reason why he is present within us, but he is untainted by the karma of this world. Akhilaheya Pratyanika, Kalyanaikatana, Ubhayalingatva. These Yujyate iti yogaha. Yoga shabda here, therefore, Kalyana Guna Yoga. Krishna therefore says, how will bhakti be cultivated? How it can grow? How it can be strengthened? Etam vibhutim yogam cha. Mama yo vetti tatpataha. Knowing his vibhutis, we get to understand that everything in this world is his vibhuti. Everything in this world is his vibhuti, and whenever we see something beautiful, whenever we see something eminent, whenever we see something excellent, immediately that which is beautiful, that which is eminent, that which is attractive should remind us of Bhagavan then and there. Therefore, there is no way that we can stay disconnected from Krishna. Everything and anything which is attractive around us should remind us of the limitless attractiveness of Krishna. Yad yad vibhutimat sattvam srimadurjitameva va tattadevavagachatvam mama tejamsa shambhavam, Krishna says. Yad yad vibhutimat sattvam srimadurjitameva va. Any excellence that we see, anything good that we see, anything attractive that we see, anything beautiful that we see should remind us that all these are manifestations of sparks of his limitless beauty, sparks of his limitless power. Therefore, every moment of life and living, we can stay connected with Krishna. Because we always have this question, how do we constantly contemplate on him? How do we stay connected with him all the time? Even when we go out of our altars, is there a way that we can stay connected with Him, experiencing Krishna everywhere, in anything that we do? The answer is crystal clear. Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam srimadurjitamevava. It is through the world that we can discover the world maker. It is through the world that we can discover the world maker. We don't need to go searching for the world maker away from the world. Staying in the world, engaging with the world, we can discover our Krishna. Now, when we look at this world, there are two contrasting perspectives. There are some who look at the world and say, what is the point of this world? Everything is pointless. We see all around misery, distress, anguish. We see everything bad, ugly. This is one way of looking at the world. There is another perspective looking at the world. Look at the world. What a beautiful world. Look at the artistry around. It's like a beautiful painting. It's Krishna's painting. Everything that we see is artistry. It's so wonderful, so beautiful. Everything is so good in this world. This is a different perspective altogether. Now, both these perspectives teach us vital lessons. Now, if we are only looking at the world as a place of distress, then we become cynical. If we look at the world if you look at only the ugliness of the world, we become cynical and we may start giving up on the world. On the other hand, if we only look at the beauty of the world, we may also come to a conclusion that it is this world which is going to give us everlasting happiness, and sooner or later we are going to be disappointed. So therefore, what is important is to look at the world, the distress of the world, and also the wonder and the beauty of the world. Look at the world and eventually look beyond the world. Because the point of the world is to point to the world maker. The point of the world is to point to the world maker. It is only through the world that we can keep reminding ourselves of the limitless beauty of Krishna. And every time we engage with the world, we get an opportunity to celebrate the wonder of the world, and more importantly, the wonder of the world maker. And that is the reason why Vibhuti Yoga is so very significant. It is so very foundational in the process of cultivating bhakti. The moment we understand this, the moment we understand how magical our lives are, how miraculous our lives are, how wonderful this world is, and we start to experience the world and through the world maker, then everything becomes so very magical. That is bhakti. Then we start to live in a state of awe all the time. The problem for us is we have become so very mechanical. The wonder and awe when we were children fades away as we start growing, and then life becomes so mechanical. In the process of life becoming mechanical, we start to ignore the life giver and we start to be not to be in a state of awe. So therefore, connecting with vibhutis of the Vibhu is the only way to kindle a sense of awe, to kindle a sense of wonder, to kindle our expression of gratitude. And bhakti is love plus an admixture of all of this put together. Bhakti will naturally sprout, grow, and strengthen. It is in this process that Krishna presents 4 profound shlokas. Why we need to celebrate Chatushloki is because in these 4 shlokas, Krishna packs Tattvahita Purusharthas in 4 shlokas. So therefore we need to look at the context of Chatushloki Gita before the content of the Chatushloki Gita. Because when we understand the context, it becomes even more significant. What is the context of the Chatushloki Gita? The context is, we have to see how Krishna starts 10th chapter. Bhuya eva mahabaho shunume paramam vachaha, he says. Krishna, right at the beginning of 10th chapter, he starts by making a very important statement. A Mahabaho, a Arjuna, no, whenever Krishna wants Arjuna's attention, Krishna knows how to get somebody's attention. You have to praise somebody in order to get their attention. Art of communication. We learn from the Gita many things. One is art of communication. Whenever we give an important message, the message will be lost if the listener is not in the right frame of mind. And how do we get the listener into the right frame of mind? The easiest and simplest way is praise the listener. Hey Mahabaho, Arjuna is now ready. Krishna, no, I'm ready, Krishna. Bhuya eva Mahabaho. Shunu, listen. Shunu me paramam vachaha. Krishna says, paramam vachaha. This is going to be a quintessential truth that I'm going to now share with you. Supreme truth, hey Arjuna. So therefore be prepared for that. Yatteham priyamanaya pakshyami hitakamyaya. Because you are someone I love deeply, hey Arjuna. How blessed Arjuna is for Bhagavan himself to repeatedly keep telling this to Arjuna. I don't think Arjuna would have said so many times, hey Krishna, I love you so much. We see Krishna saying so many times to Arjuna, because you are so very special to me, hey Arjuna, I'm going to share with you hitakamyaya. That's something which is the utmost good for you. So therefore, the context of Chatushloki becomes very clear. Paramam vachaha. Krishna himself qualifies what is to come. Paramam vachaha. He also follows that saying, asammudas samartyeshu sarvapapai pramuchyate. Yomam ajam anadim cha vetti loka maheshwaram. Asammudas samartyeshu sarvapapai pramuchyate. What I am going to share with you, Arjuna, by listening to that sarvapapai pramuchyate, all your papa karmas will be washed away, Arjuna. So therefore, he also places on the table the reward right up front. This will completely destroy all the papa karmas, hey Arjuna. Asammudas samatyeshu. Delusion will be completely driven away, he says. Yomam ajam anadim lokamaheshwaram. He says 3 important characteristics, 3 important terms he uses. Ajam, anadim, lokamaheshwaram. Krishna, it is here, we see Krishna introducing himself in the 7th chapter. Now here in the 10th chapter, he is now sharpening that information that is already shared. Now, we are seeing now Krishna making the transition from helping Arjuna from knowing about Krishna to knowing Krishna. Ajam, anadim, lokamaheshwaram. Ajam. Krishna is Ajam. Bhagavan is Ajam. Ajam means one who has no birth, birthless forever. Therefore, he distinguishes himself from all the Achit Tattva, the world of matter, Prakriti, which is subject to birth changes. Ajam, Anadim, Anadim, eternal, Anadim Ajam, which means he is clearly making a distinction between him and a Baddha Jivatma. Baddha Jivatma is not Anadim Ajam. He also in samsara is subject to repeated cycle of births and deaths. So therefore, he makes a distinction between him and every Baddha Jivatma. Anadim Ajam Lokamaheshwaram. he also makes a distinction between him and all the Mukta Jivatmas and the Nitya Jivatmas. Therefore, his Paratva, his supremacy is being established here, saying, knowing me as the Supreme Being, hey Arjuna, asammudas samartyeshu sarvapapai pramuchyate. Sarvapapai pramuchyate. So therefore, we get to know the significance of the context of Chatushloki. This is from Krishna's side. Paramam vachaha, Krishna is qualified. Now we see different facets of Arjuna throughout the Gita. In the Gita, we see Arjuna beginning with making a strong case as to why he should not fight. So throughout the first chapter, we see Arjuna speaking at length, but his speaking was centered around making a case for not fighting the war. This is one facet of Arjuna that we see. And then from the second chapter onwards, we see Arjuna continuing to speak. Gita is a samvada. Therefore, while primary speaker is Krishna, we see Arjuna also speaking, but we see from second chapter onwards, Arjuna only asking questions. He's only asking questions at the appropriate times. But there is only one place in the entire Gita where Arjuna is not making a case against war and he is not asking questions. He is paraphrasing and rephrasing his understanding of Krishna's teachings. There is only one place in the entire Gita where we see Arjuna, instead of asking questions, is actually rephrasing, paraphrasing what Krishna has already taught him. And that happens immediately after Chatushloki Gita. Param Brahma Parandhava Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adidevam Ajam Vipum Swayame Atmanatmanam Vetatvam Purushottama Bhutabhavana Bhuteshaha Devadeva Jagatpathe. Arjuna for the first time realizes Krishna, realizes who Krishna is. And therefore, while Krishna from the 7th chapter starts to teach the nature of Bhagavan, his own nature, it is here after Chatushloki Gita, we see Arjuna rephrasing his understanding and submitting to Krishna with his prayers. Beautiful prayers. Param Brahma Parandama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adidevam Ajam Vibhum, he says. So therefore, on the one hand, we see Krishna qualifying Chatushloki with Paramam Vachaha adjective. And we see Arjuna following Chatushloki by paraphrasing Krishna's teaching with profound prayers. Thus we see the significance of Chatushloki in the Gita. This is the context of Chatushloki. Now we should dive into the content of Chatushloki Gita. 4 shlokas. Chatushloki. Shloka number 8, 9, 10 and 11 of Vibhuti Yoga. The way these 4 shlokas are structured, by reflecting on the structure of these 4 shlokas, we can understand the profound nature of all these 4 shlokas. With shloka number 8, Krishna gives us the definition of Bhagavan. Krishna helps us how to identify Bhagavan. Now, all of us are always searching for how to define God. Because unfortunately, our schools and colleges don't teach this. We finish possibly 20 plus years of studies. We may even end up doing a PhD. And then we come out, and then if someone asks us, define God, then we will have to start struggling with words as to how we will come up with not just any definition, a definition which is all encompassing, which could be the most fundamental definition. Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayanti abhisamvishanti tad vijijnasasva tad brahmeti. The Upanishads gloriously define who is that Brahman, that Parabrahman. Now, in Chatushloki Gita, Krishna presents a beautiful definition. And this definition is simple and so very profound that it is not just informational. Because a definition of God, if it just remains informational, is useful, but it cannot just remain informational, it has to become transformational. What we see is the definition that Krishna presents becomes more than being informational, becomes transformational. So in the very first shloka of Chatushloki itself, we see not only a profound definition for Bhagavan, we also see the outcome of knowing him. What is the outcome of knowing Krishna? Therefore, the first shloka of Chatushloki Gita gives us two very important things. One is definition and identification of Krishna, and second, the outcome of knowing that definition. And then shloka number 9 talks about how do enlightened bhaktas conduct themselves. How do they lead their lives? What kind of actions they do? The moment one knows Krishna, how that knowing translates into doing. Because knowing and doing always have to supplement and complement each other. So second shloka in Chatushloki Gita talks about how do enlightened bhaktas conduct themselves. In the third shloka of Chatushloki Gita, shloka 10 of chapter 10, Krishna then talks about how he bestows knowledge that is required for right choice making. Knowledge that is required for making right choices in our lives. Because our lives are nothing but a series of choices. We keep making choices all the time. And the question therefore arises, how do I make right choices all the time? In third shloka of Chatushloki, Krishna says, I bestow knowledge to you which will enable you to make right choices all the time. In the fourth shloka of Chatushloki, we see Krishna's compassion. Not only he says, I bestow the knowledge to you, I shall also remove all the obstacles that shall come in the way of you acquiring that knowledge, in the way of you acquiring and assimilating that knowledge. There cannot be any compassion that we can imagine beyond this. The first two shlokas of Chatushloki, therefore, essentially is highlighting Krishna's position, his supreme position, which transforms us, inspires us. And the second two shlokas of the Chatushloki highlights his compassionate disposition, his supreme position and his compassionate disposition. This is one way to look at Chatushloki Gita. Another way to look at Chatushloki Gita, with the first two shlokas, shloka number 8 and 9, we get to know what we need to do. 8 and 9 teaches us what we need to do. Shlokas 9 and 10 and 11 teach us what Krishna shall do. So therefore, with these four shlokas, we get the very essence of Gita Amrita. Shloka number 8 of the 10th chapter. This is the first shloka which sets the stage, giving the identification, giving the definition of Bhagavan. Aham sarvasya prabhavaha mattas sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante ma buddha bhava samanvitaah. Buddha bhava samanvitaah. Bhava samanvitaah. Bhava samanvita here is Buddha, one who is wise. Krishna uses the word here, Buddha, not just bhakta. An ideal bhakta is a Buddha, one who is wise. That's why earlier in 7th chapter he calls the supreme bhakta as jnani, because it is that knowledge that transforms into bhakti. What is that knowledge? Knowledge of Krishna, knowing Krishna. Only when we know Krishna, we can love Krishna. So knowing and loving are one and the same. There is no difference between knowing and loving. Unless we know someone, we cannot genuinely love someone. Until then, we will only know about that someone. Our knowing about will take us up to some distance. Knowing about is collecting all that information. Now, Google will definitely help us knowing about Krishna. Now, today we are blessed compared to the earlier generations. A lot of information available. Everything brings as much information as possible. With all ChatGPT and everything that is out there, everything is being given to us as and when we want. So knowing about no longer is difficult. We can be flooded with lots of information. But how do we transition from that state of knowing about to knowing? Because knowing is experiencing. Knowing is realizing. Knowing is loving. And knowing Krishna will result in us loving Krishna. So Krishna here uses the word Buddha, bhava samanvita. Bhava samanvita. Those who invest their emotions in Krishna. It is very important to invest our emotions in a relationship. We all know this. We all know how we build relationships. If we do not invest emotion in a relationship cannot be strengthened. Even in mundane relationships, material relationships, bodily relationships, we know we have to necessarily invest our emotions. Same is the case. We have to invest our emotions in our relationship with Krishna. More the emotion that we invest, and this is not material emotion. This is the emotion of the Atman, our natural emotion, bhakti, which is very natural to us. And when we invest that emotion, bhava samanvita, Buddha bhava samanvita. This is the outcome Krishna is talking about. Outcome of knowing Krishna. Knowing Krishna as aham sarvasya prabhavaha mattas sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante ma. Now, knowing Krishna is very easy to say. But what is knowing Krishna? What do we mean when we say knowing Krishna? First, let us understand that. We can take the analogy of gold, which is very dear to all of us. Let's say Krishna is like gold. Now, you go to a house and then you declare to the people there, you say, you know what? Just right there in your backyard, there are hundreds of tons of gold. What would you expect? They would immediately rush and start to excavate. Immediate. They will run. Now, what if they do not run? The only possibility could be they do not know the value of gold. Another possibility is they are really jnanis, mahatmas, yogis who have renounced everything in life. That is a very rare incident. So we are taking the general situation here. We are not going for exceptions. So only when somebody does not know what is gold, then when you declare that there are tons of gold waiting for you, they will, obviously they will start running. Now, you go to someone and start teaching to them. You know what? The chemical symbol for gold is AU. The melting point of gold is 1064 degrees Celsius. Gold has shining yellow in color, looks so very beautiful. You say all of this, but unless that someone who knows the real value of gold, someone who wants to make a necklace and enjoy wearing that, why will they care about 1064 degrees Celsius of melting point or AU being the symbol? All this information is irrelevant to that someone. The only relevant point is how gold can enrich me. That is the only relevant point. Everything else is immaterial. So there's no point in Googling and getting one 10-page document on everything about gold, unless there is something which will kindle that sense of feeling that this is what is going to enrich me. Similarly, we can collect all kinds of information about Krishna, but unless we know the intrinsic value, unless we know Krishna, there is no way that we will start running to discover him. Someone will come and say, hey, come, I will let you know Krishna. We will not go running because we still have not discovered the intrinsic value of Krishna. Now, in Chatushloki, therefore, Krishna, right in the first shloka, establishes his nature and declares who he is. How do we know him? He clearly gives us clarity. He presents this definition of God in such a way that it is awe-inspiring. He not only does that, he talks about the supremacy of God, he being the source of all sources, he being the cause of all causes. And not only that, he also gives total clarity that that cause of all causes, that source of all sources, is also available to us in a divine, beautiful form. It is a combination of both. His Swarupa and Rupa both have to be understood together. One without the other will not kindle that sense of intense love and longing in us. Krishna brings both of us together. He talks about his paratva, his supremacy. He talks about how he is the source of all sources. Not only that, he also says, it is me, hey Arjuna. And he points to his own divine form that can be accessible and relished by one and all. So he gives us total clarity, and he also establishes one important, fundamental, foundational truth, that there is only one supreme being. He is the Vibhu. There are several worshipable beings, higher beings than Manushas, no doubt. No. When the Vedas talk about several devatas, several deities, every deity, every devata is a vibhuti of the one Vibhu. There is only one supreme being. So therefore, there is no need to be confused about the nature of that one supreme truth. Krishna also in the Chatushloki Gita gives us that total clarity. And this clarity is transformational. By knowing that he is my source, my origin, my cause, automatically brings about the transformation. It is just like how a prince who gets separated from the king right from the childhood. Imagine a little boy grew up not knowing he was the son of the king of the kingdom. He was growing up somewhere far away in a village, not knowing who he was. And then one fine day, a rishi comes and says, you know what, who you are? You are the prince, the son of the king of this kingdom. And also imagine that he has been getting monthly doles from the king, who has been sending out pocket money to him without him realizing. So he is being taken care of very well. But then now suddenly he realizes, the one who has been providing all my provisions, who has been taking care of me all the time. He is not only my well-wisher and who is the one who is taking care of me, he also happens to be my father, my source, my origin. What would then happen to this boy? He would immediately want to reconnect with his father, reconnect with the king, knowing that he is my source, he is my origin. There would be that sudden burst of love. Until then, possibly he would have looked at the king as another well-wisher. Maybe he would have had respect, not love. The moment that relationship is known, that sense of love is kindled and it starts to grow. But then imagine if the boy turns around and says, I'm very, very happy with the monthly dole that I've been getting. Now that you said my father is the king, he's been only sending me 1,000 rupees. Why don't you ask him to send 5,000 rupees from now on? We will think it's madness, but that's what we all do. We are getting our monthly dole. Everything that we want, all our provisions, everything is being taken care of. After knowing he is our source, the source of all sources, we say, Krishna, thank you for saying this. Now that you are the source of everything, you should be able to give me more now. You have been giving me less. It's like that boy saying, in the right frame of mind, that boy would have said, wow, and he would have started running. And the beauty is, before that boy could start running towards the king would come galloping on the horse to meet the boy. And this is what Krishna does to us. Before we could take even one step, he would take several thousand steps reaching out to us. Aham sarvasya prabhavaha, mattas sarvam pravartate. Aham sarvasya prabhavaha, sarvasya prabhavaha. I am the source. We keep saying, meditate on Krishna, meditate on Krishna. Why do we meditate on Krishna? Karanam tu dhyeyaha, Shastras say. Meditate on your Karana. Akila Karana, Adbhuta Karana, Nishkarana. The one who is the source of all sources, the cause of all causes. One from whom everything emanates. Yatova imani bhutani jayante, yena jatani jivanti. Everything emanates from him. He is the source of everything. Therefore, he is the one who has to be meditated upon. He is the source. Aham sarvasya prabhavaha, he says, the origin and the source. He also says, matta sarvam pravartate. Matta sarvam pravartate. Pravartate can be understood in two different ways. Pravartate, he is the cause, origin from which everything emanates. He is the cause, the origin, because of whom everything functions and operates. This is the beauty. This cause is so very unique. It not only causes, it also causes operations. How do we operate? How do we live? How do we are governed day to day, controlled, ordained by him. So every move is orchestrated by him. Matta sarvam pravartate. Iti matva bhajante mam. Buddha bhava samanvita. Knowing this, knowing Krishna as the one who is the cause of all causes, because of who this entire creation functions. He is the one who controls and governs. Knowing him as this, iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. Buddha bhava samanvita. The wise man, the one who is a true bhakta, then starts to engage in loving him, serving him. This knowledge transforms automatically into submitting. Now there is no need to ask the question, why must I submit to him? Why must I submit to Krishna? Why must I worship him? Why must I love him? Aham sarvasya, answer is aham sarvasya prabhavaha, mattas sarvam pravartate. Our very existence is governed by him. So therefore, it is important to serve him, submit to him, and worship him with love. When we are driving, we come to a junction and there are two ways to go. Now, in order to take the right route and reach our destination, there are two important things needed. One is the conviction that the route that we are going to take is the right route. First, we need to know the right route. We need to be convinced that it is the right route. Conviction alone is not enough. Then we have to further drive on the route. We are at the junction. There is a map which tells us the right route. Knowing the right route, we are convinced. And with that conviction, we cannot stay. We have to continue to drive to reach the destination. Similarly, Gita teaches us like a map, teaches us knowledge and points us to Krishna. Knowing him gives us that philosophical conviction. Now, when we have to choose Krishna over everything else, we need that philosophical conviction. Otherwise, it's very difficult. Somebody comes and says, no, don't do this. Choose Krishna over this. We should say, why should I do this? This is a lot more important to me. We need to be philosophically convinced first. We need to know. But just that conviction alone is not enough. We need to further keep driving. Buddha bhava samanvitaha. We need to keep practicing so that that conviction remains strong and becomes an expression of our way of life and living. And that is the reason why Krishna then talks about people who are convinced, people who know Krishna, how do they lead their lives? Matchitta madgata prana bodhayantah parasparam katayantas chamam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha tushyanti cha ramanti cha Matchitta madgata prana bodhayantah parasparam. Three characteristics of the enlightened Krishna talks about. What are the three characteristics? Matchitta, madgata prana, bodhayantah parasparam. Krishna is talking about how this knowledge, this knowing expresses itself in three different ways. Expresses in our thinking, in our contemplation, expresses itself in the very way we live, and thirdly, expresses in ways we communicate, we speak. Interestingly, he talks of three things here: thinking, living, speaking. He gives very special importance to speaking, to speech, walk. Why? Because while both thinking and living are important, in any relationship, communication becomes critical. And therefore, he stresses on bodhayantah parasparam, speaking. Why? The relationship with Krishna can be strengthened not only by relating with him, but also relating with Krishna's bhaktas, bhagavatas. Bodhayantah parasparam. That's why he says, katayantischa mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Sharing glories of Krishna all the time. Kathayantascha mam nityam. Tushyanti ramanti. Tushyanti ramanti. The speaker is also thrilled. The listeners are also thrilled. Krishna Katha is nectarine for the speaker, is nectarine for the listener as well. What are the characteristics of these enlightened bhaktas? Matchitta, madgata prana, bodhayantaha, matchitta. First and foremost, matchitta. He says, hey Arjuna, matchitta. All your thoughts should be housed only in me, he says. Fixing our mind on Krishna is nothing but finding a home for all our thoughts. We need to necessarily find a safe home. We all have two homes, or maybe more as well, but primarily two. One is a physical home. Physical home is for our bodies, physical bodies. We all naturally gravitate towards our physical home. Wherever we are, after some time, we all say, go back home. No. Home is a place where we somehow try to find some semblance of security. Pseudo security, if you were to put that way. So that is our physical home. Similarly, all of us also have a home, mental home for all our thoughts. All our thoughts also have a home. Now it is important to know what this home is. Depending on our own interests, we have several homes. Krishna says, your thoughts should find me as the home. Krishna should become the home for all our thoughts. Machchitta. That is why sometime back I made this statement. We need to reflect on what we think when we do not have anything to think. We find our mental home. It is very easy to find our physical home. Physically, we can find our home. How do we find our mental home where our thoughts are housed? Our mental home is found when we reflect on what we think when we do not have anything to think. Then we will find our mental home. Now, Krishna says that mental home should be me here, Arjuna. Make Krishna as the mental home, as the home for all your thoughts. Which means always Krishna dhyana. Every thought should be flavored with Krishna. Mat chitta, mat gata prana. When chitta is in Krishna, then that expression of that would be mat gata prana. We would automatically devote our very life to Krishna. Mat gata prana, devoting our entire life to Krishna. Madgata prana, madchitta, madgata prana. Bodhayanta parasparam. The third is not only knowing Krishna is important, sharing what we know is also becomes very important. It is in that sharing that we also grow. Bodhayanta parasparam. Krishna Katha has to be constantly shared. And when Krishna's glories are shared, then bhakti also grows and gets strengthened. Krishna, therefore, in the second shloka of Chatushloki Gita, he summarizes how the enlightened bhaktas conduct themselves. Matchitta, matkata prana, bodhayantah parasparam, katayantascha mam nityam, tushyanti cha, ramanti cha. Tesham satatayuktanam, bhajatam pritipurvakam, dadhami buddhi yogam tam, enamam upayanti te. This is a very, very important shloka where Krishna now, after having summarized what we need to do to Krishna, now talks about what Krishna will do for us. So what Krishna will do for us is much more than what we can do for him. What Krishna will do for us. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Tesham satata yuktanam is referring to those who are matchitta, madgata prana, bodhayanta parasparam. Those who are leading their lives immersed in Krishna's love. Tesham satata yuktanam, ever united with him, always constantly connected with him all the time. Satata yuktanam. Bhajatam, worshipping him all the time. How can one worship him all the time? The moment one knows everything is his vibhuti, then we can worship him anywhere. We can worship him wherever we are. Because everything beautiful, everything good is his vibhuti. By worshipping him all the time, tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Now this priti purvakam can be a qualifier for the bhakta, can also be a qualifier for Bhagavan as well. When a bhakta with love worships Bhagavan, Bhagavan with more love, ati priti purvakam. Now we need to add a little bit there. Priti purvakam, we take the liberty of adding a in front of priti. Ati priti, ati. Bhajatam ati priti purvakam dadhabi buddhi yogam tam. So when we split this into two parts, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Now this is for the bhakta. Priti purvakam bhajatam tesham satata yuktanam. When the bhakta with great love stays connected with Bhagavan. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Ati priti purvakam dadhami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. Krishna then says, if bhakta can give me some love, I will give multifold love to that Bhagavan, because he always reciprocates with more love, showers more love. The moment we open our hearts and our minds and hearts are flooded with his love. Ati priti purvakam dadhami. Dadhami buddhi yogam tam. Buddhi yoga here is a very important term to understand. Not just knowledge. Bhakti progresses in successive stages. Bhakti can be, where there are several stages, there are three important stages in the progress of bhakti. Parabhakti, Parajnana, Paramabhakti. These are three crucial stages of the progression of bhakti. Parabhakti. Parabhakti is that supreme love for Bhagavan, where we are constantly worshipping Him, knowing Him as the Vibhu. That intense love and longing for Bhagavan is Parabhakti. That is stage one. You may all wonder, is that stage one? We thought there will be something, lower than that so that we all can get qualified for the stage. We are still in pre-KG, yet to go to KG. Parabhakti, Parajnana. Parajnana is the second stage where Bhagavan's grace brings about a great transformation. Pleased with the bhakta, Bhagavan presents, bestows knowledge. This is what Krishna here is talking about. Buddhi yogam, parajnana dasha. This is darshana. This is darshana in the mind, where we are able to not just experience Krishna, see Krishna with the eye of knowledge. Now, knowing Krishna transforms into experiencing Him and seeing Him. Now, He is presenting to us His glorious vision. With the eye of knowledge, now we can see Him, see His divine form. That is the stage of Parajnana. Dadhami buddhi yogam tam. That buddhi yoga is the knowledge that has matured into bhakti. And when that knowledge matures into bhakti, we will be able to see, have a mental vision. Darshana, samanakara darshana. It is as though we are seeing Him in Vaikuntha. We can see Him in our own minds with the eye of knowledge. That is the second stage. Parabhakti, Parajnana. The third stage is Paramabhakti. The moment we have the vision, then every second on this planet becomes unbearable. The bhakta starts to have this thirst to attain Krishna and is thirsting for that samslesha, and the Krishna Trishna matures so much that Bhagavan then grants Parama Bhakti, which is the stage of attaining moksha, mumukshatva. That is the final stage of bhakti, which is Parama Bhakti. Here in the 10th shloka, Krishna is talking about the Parajnana Dasha, which is nothing but mental vision of Bhagavan. He says, Buddhi Yogam, Dadhami Buddhi Yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. The moment Krishna presents himself, his divine vision, Dadhami Buddhi Yogam tam, that becomes the means to attain him easily. The moment he enters our mind, magic happens. So Krishna says to Arjuna in the third shloka of the Chatushloki, to those bhaktas who stay connected with me, constantly worshipping him as the Vibhu, I shall bestow that Buddhi Yoga with which one can start to experience me and have my vision. And then he moves on to say, we may all have this immediate question. Krishna may bestow knowledge to us, Buddhi Yoga. He may even present himself and reveal his divine vision to us. But then we are filled with anadikala papakarmas. Therefore, there is darkness inside. How would we sustain that vision? Will that vision be just a flicker which will come and go? Or is that vision of Krishna sustainable? This is a very important question all of us have. Because there are moments when we have that glorious bliss experience of Krishna, and then immediately it fades and goes. Again, darkness prevails. Krishna immediately says, you do not need to worry here, Arjuna. Tesham evanukampartam aham agyanajam tamaha nashayamyatma bhavastaha jnanadipena bhasvata. Hey Arjuna, do not be worried. Eva anukampa. He says, out of my compassion, eva anukampartam, even that darkness, I will do the cleaning for you. Krishna says, hey Arjuna, do not be worried. Even the dirt that you have accumulated over several lifetimes, I will engage in cleaning the dirt so that all the darkness within is completely removed. Tesham yevanukampartam aham ajnanajam tamaha. The darkness of ignorance will be completely eliminated by me. I shall cleanse, do the cleaning. This is the Vatsalya Guna of Krishna. So, whenever we discuss Bhagavan's Vatsalya Guna, we are immediately reminded of a mother cow which does not hesitate even a moment to clean her own calf, which immediately after giving birth, the calf is covered with layers and layers of flesh and blood and dirt and whatnot. No moment of hesitation whatsoever. The mother cow, out of compassion, out of vatsalya, cleans the calf. Bhagavan says, I will do that cleaning for you, hey Arjuna. All your papa karmas which have resulted in this darkness, this ignorance, will be cleaned. How? Jnana deepena bhasvata. I shall light the lamp of wisdom. By lighting the lamp of wisdom, the darkness will be driven out, and then you can sustain my vision continuously. So, therefore, Krishna presenting to us can be sustained. The moment we have his glorious vision, his darshana, we can sustain his darshana and continue to experience him forever. Why? Because the darkness of ajnana is completely removed. This is why Bhagavan not only lights the external world for us, we all find it very uncomfortable dealing with darkness. We cannot tolerate darkness. We need, wherever we go, we need the lights to be switched on. Otherwise, we feel very uncomfortable. We are completely lost. Therefore, external illumination is so very important, but most often we ignore inner illumination. While we are very uncomfortable dealing with darkness outside, somehow we get used to the inner darkness and we keep struggling through the inner darkness all the time. We know we are struggling because of the inner darkness. Why? How we know we are struggling? Because we are struggling to make choices. We are struggling to choose our desires. We are struggling to deal with the competition that is happening amongst countless of desires in our minds. We know there is a struggle that is going on. And all this struggle is because of the inner darkness. Now, how can we stop this inner darkness? How can we stop this struggle? Just like how we switch on the light outside, the inner light has to be switched on. And we don't need to switch on because we will be searching. Imagine we are in the darkness. You don't even know where to switch. The switches are. So we need to shout out, hey, can somebody help me? Somebody will come who knows, switch the light on. Similarly, hey Krishna Rakshaswa, Krishno Rakshatuno Jagatre Guru, Krishnam Namasyamyam, Krishnena Amarashatravo Vinita, Krishnaya Tubhyam Namaha, Krishna Deva Samuttitam Jagaditam, Krishnasya Dasosyam, Krishne Tishtati, Sarvameda Dakilam, hey Krishna Rakshaswamam, hey Krishna Rakshaswam. The moment we call out to Krishna, immediately says, Tesham evanukampartam aham ajnanajam tamaha nashayam atma bhavastaha jnanadipena bhasvata. He lights the inner lamp of wisdom. When that inner lamp is lit, there is no more inner darkness. Immediately what happens? We are able to see, we have crystal clear vision of our inner world. There is dirt within. We have to accept it. There is garbage within. We have to accept it. We cannot do away with anadikala papa karma vasanas. We cannot do away with it. But at least we know that when it is lit, we need to know how to organize our garbage. We need to organize our garbage. Only when the light is switched on, we can start looking at how to prioritize our desires, how to organize everything within. And in that clarity, Krishna says, we will only choose, make one choice, because in that clarity, when that Jnana Deepa is lit, we can only see one thing which is all attractive. Nothing else is attractive anymore. This world that has been fascinating us, this world that has been alluring us, then we see that if this world can be alluring, if this world can be fascinating, then the world maker is millionfold fascinating. He is infinitely alluring. He is infinitely beautiful. There is no need for us to waste our emotions, our energy, and our attention on something which is temporary, on something which is not going to bring us lasting happiness. Our heart gets directed automatically to that source of that glorious vision with the Jnana Deepa. So therefore, Krishna says, with that, one continues to stay connected with Krishna forever until the Parajnana Dasha reaches the stage of Parama Bhakti, when Krishna himself knows the calling has come for us to take on the exit of Archiradi Marga to reach our ultimate destination. Thus, with four simple but profound shlokas, Chatushloki Gita teaches us how to know Krishna. And in the process of knowing Krishna, how do we also start to experience Him, which will kindle that sense of awe, that sense of wonder, that sense of gratitude, all rooted in love for Him. And this is this love for Krishna alone which can nourish our longing. Nothing else can nourish our longing. We are all we are trying to find sources that can nourish our eternal longing. What is our eternal longing? Very simple: to love and be loved. This is what we have been longing for forever. And the moment of truth happens when we find the source of all love. And that source which can nourish this eternal longing, once it is discovered, then our lives become magical. Sarvam Sri Krishna Arpanamastu.